Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're coming to the end. We have looked over the last few months together about how we can be effective in calling people to submit to Allah, dawah ilallah. And we've been using many different comparative sciences. We've been looking at Christianity, humanism, Satanism, you name it. We've covered all the different sources and we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg. This is just to whet your appetite for the research that you need to do. It'll take you your whole lifetimes again and again and again and again. Not that we're coming back again and again and again, but it'll take you many lifetimes to learn all the knowledge. And your job is to continuously seek knowledge all the days of your life. We are doing some question and answer so that people have the opportunity at home to ask questions as well as here in the studio. And so we are going to continue with answering some of the questions now. Anyone have a question? Front row.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, as you are at the end of the series, can you please summarize in short the different denominations in Christianity and the version of Bible they believe in and the number of books that version of Bible consists?
So how do we sum up Christianity in a nutshell? There are three different groupings within Christianity. You have the Catholics, the Greek Orthodox, or Russian Orthodox. They are one group, more or less Catholic. Catholic means universal. So universal church. The Catholic Church, in correct terminology, it's not the Catholic Church, it's the Roman Catholic Church. It came from Rome. Its headquarters are in Rome. Then from the breakaway from them came the Protestants. They were protesting against the movement and the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church. They are made up of roughly 30,000 denominations, 30,000 different schools of thought, and they all disagree with each other. Some of them have worked together and they call them the vine churches, like a vine, and they work together. But generally, most of them are still separate. These make up all different groups that are broken up for all sorts of reasons. In America, there was a group that had a church split. In other words, the church didn't agree with each other. So imagine that this was a church that we're in here. This side of the church wanted blue books for the singing when they sing hymns, and this group here wanted red books. They wanted red because it signified the blood of Christ. They wanted blue because it signified heaven. So they fought about it, and they split. The church divided in two, and they started two different Christian denominations because of it. And they came in the middle of the night and they cut the church in half. Not joking. Most of the houses are built of wood. So they came there and cut half their church down and took it with them. Imagine what the people must have been thinking, those guys, carrying the church down the street. There go the blue guys and there go the red guys. People split for many, many reasons. So that's what happened in the Protestant church. So you can always imagine guys coming in the middle of the night, hacksawing the church down and splitting it into groups. That's why there's 30,000. And then the third group are your cults. Not the word occult, but cults. And these are your Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Scientologists, and all the other groups that come out. There's a new one all the time. Jim Jones, David Koresh, all those guys were also part of the cults. There's many of them all the time starting up. The Catholics use their own Bible. The Protestants use any one of 2,000 different translations. And these cults normally have their own one. So the Jehovah's Witnesses have their own version. Seventh-day Adventists have now got their own version. Mormons have their own version. And Scientologists have their own version. So they don't even use the same book. They each have different numbers of books in, varying from anywhere between 66 books right up to 90 and beyond. Who knows what the total will end up ending up at? Probably a few thousand in the future. No, I'm not joking, because more and more books are being released by Jewish scholars who have these documents. And they're releasing them, and some of the Bible societies are adding these books in. And as far as a conservative estimate, there's more than 1,000 books still waiting to be released. Some of them are authentic, some of them not authentic, but Bible scholars choose what they want to add and what they don't want to add. So the Millennium Bible has more books than even the Catholic. So there are many books to choose from, many different ones that they add. So this is Christianity, very, very briefly in a nutshell. We have done this in more depth in the series. Let's move on to the next question before we run out of time.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
When we do dawah, to another person, means a Christian or a Hindu, when we say that Allah Almighty is one, and we see in the translation, English translation of Quran, where many times it is written we and us for Allah, then how to explain them this?
Okay. So the question is, in the Quran we often find the word we. Those of you who have been with me on the series have noticed that often when I talk about something that happens in South Africa or the organization, I talk about we. But the organization consists of me. It's just me. But I don't use the word I or me. I use the word we. So when we look in the Quran, often we find the word we mentioned, and Christians get all excited and they say this has to deal with the Trinity. But we find that even in the modern day language, in ancient language, and even the Hebrew language, God always spoke about we. And you also find that when the Queen stands up, she speaks in England, she stands up and says we. She never says I or me. She always speaks about we. It's called the royal we. So the same thing when I speak, I try not to speak about me, I say about we. It's just a way of using, instead of focusing too much on yourself. Allah has the right to focus on himself. But it's easy for us to understand the word when it's translated into English. So the translators, when you look at it compared to the Arabic and the English, it doesn't have the same meaning as we have it, as we understand it, as I understand it. So the word is not something to get excited about. It's not a word to suddenly, oh, here's the Trinity being mentioned. It's just like Christians get excited where it says, and Jesus will die and then he'll be raised again. It's all going to happen to every single one of us. We're all going to die and we're going to be raised again. There's nothing mysterious in that statement. They go, oh, there, he has proof. He died on the cross and he raised again. Therefore, Jesus is God according to the Quran. This is very poor understanding, and it's grasping at straws, trying to find something where there isn't anything. So there are very good explanations that have been given by a number of good scholars. I'm trying to think of a couple of them offhand who have done very good explanations of that. I think Yusuf Estes has done a good one where he talks about the we, and also Dr. Bilal Phillips has done a good one where he explains it. So again, Christians will bring this up. It's not talking about a plural God, as in being many gods. It's just a term of respect. Okay, next question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
You mentioned that there were 3 Jesuses. So like, were they 3 different entities, or like 2 just sprung up as an imagination in the later scholars?
During the time of the Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, at that time period, according to the Christian scriptures, we're looking at a time period, we don't know exact dates. We've got a more or less time period. Could be 30-year period, 40-year period, 33-year period. The Christians say a 33-year period, but we don't know exact dates and time. No one said this is the day that Jesus was born, this is the day that Jesus was crucified. So we're working around that time period from what Christian scholars tell us. But we know from external sources, Roman sources, Jewish sources, like what the Greeks were writing at that period, that there were a number of people claiming to be messiahs. It wasn't a once-off thing. There wasn't only one person who came along at that time and said, I'm a messiah. There were lots of messiahs. There was a messiah almost every weekend. Someone was claiming to be messiah. 50 years ago, there was a man in Israel, some Jews followed, and not even, maybe 20 years ago, who claimed that he was a messiah, and he had a huge following. Everybody followed him and thought he was a messiah. It's happened 100 times or thousands of times in history before that, and it's happened hundreds of thousands of times since that. People claim to be Messiah every second. Today, people claim to be the Messiah. There's a guy in China who has his channel, he's the Messiah. There's a man in Russia who claims to be the Messiah. There's a man in India, there's a few of them in India that claim to be the Messiah. So there's a Messiah all the time. But during that period, there were a few Messiahs that were well known. There were a couple of Jesuses that were well known at the time. All happened to have the name Jesus, which is not the name that Mary, the mother of Jesus, peace be upon her, was given to give him. According to the Bible, the angel came to Mary and said to her, you will have a son and you will call him what? Jesus? What was his name that they were supposed to call him? Anybody remember? Emmanuel. And the Christians say, well, don't get hung up by that word. It means Christ with us or God with us. No, it doesn't matter what the interpretation of the word is. If an angel comes to you and says, call him Bob, you don't call him John. Do you understand? You would call him Bob because that's what you were told. So if an angel, according to the Bible, comes and tells you one name and you choose another, that just gives a lot of doubt already. Why Jesus? And this gives credence to the idea that because there were a couple of Jesuses around at the time with that name, that perhaps they wanted to do it on purpose. And so they changed him to having the Jesus name on purpose, so that people would say, oh yeah, I know Jesus. I know the story about him. But they were thinking about another person. Well, I know, and so they purposely confused people. Well, before we answer any more questions, let's take a break, and when we get back from the break, we'll continue, inshallah.
ولله